Dude, I was thinking about the other day. How long do you think it'll take us to get to season 2?
of the of this podcast?
Yes,
That's actually a really good question.
so 'cause we do it once a month,
Yeah. And we don't even know how many episodes a season should have, right?
right? Yeah.
Unless it's just a season that never ends.
Ooh, kill him.
That wasn't the one I
That was
wanted.
well, it was close enough. Now I feel like a real-time radio. Do I sound like I'm on old-time radio? Oh man! Well, welcome to another installment of the monthly music and mental health meetup. Or,
Mhm.
uh,
Are we changing it? Oh, never mind. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
no, I don't think so. I think nothing at all is still fine. I just feel like it's like a subtitle.
Obama.
We could we could call it that as well.
I'm sorry. I want to just.
okay.
I want to ruin this episode.
Oh man, it's funny because here we were yesterday talking about how today we're just gonna like cry over ourselves. We've been so stressed out.
It's been a tough week.
It's been a tough week, but the soundboard is making things a lot better.
Yeah.
But I do want to take a moment right now to just like enjoy and get centered and just be like, hey, this is something neat that we get to do, because that's been such a theme of the whole thing. That's like part of the premise now, I feel, is just like we get to do this. We get to talk smack,
yeah.
talk about stuff that is important to us.
Yeah.
And I know you're gonna press something.
Yeah, I was gonna
Just
press
do
it. No. What's it called? How's your week been, man?
It was a little tough. So the good thing is, it's a very good thing. I was lucky enough to marry my longtime partner. Thank you. My beautiful.
You just made the list.
My beautiful now wife, Kayla. We got married last week in Vegas,
Nice.
which, it's probably going to be the coolest thing I've ever done with my life. But yeah, we had a plan. Her family kind of plans a yearly trip,
Mm-hmm.
and this year they decided on the Grand Canyon / Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And so we figured we would just hijack, the trip and repurpose it for our own nefarious reasons.
Yeah.
And yeah, she just said, you know what? Why don't we just get married? We've been engaged for 2 years. We've been together. It's going to be a total of 9 years in August.
You guys been engaged for 2 years?
2 years.
Dang.
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt like just only recently.
I know. Yeah, it's pretty wild. But yeah, time came and went, and we didn't really know how we were going to handle it. But honestly, this feels like a good way to do it. It feels like we've already been married for a really long time, because we've kind of evolved together, and we just know each other. She's my best friend. I mean, I feel like that's the way you got to do it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Your partner should be your best friend. Yeah, I'm super happy about it. It's nice to call her my wife after so long of calling her girlfriend and fiance.
I know. Yeah.
Even though I really liked calling her fiance, actually, I thought that was pretty legit.
Yeah.
But yeah, calling her my wife now is a blessing for sure. But yeah, this week has been a little hard because it's obviously we're trying to get back into the rhythm of things. We were out for a whole week, and that was great. But coming back, I was really missing Austin and just really missing my routine. You miss sleeping in your own bed.
Yeah.
Taking your own, taking a shower in your own bathroom. So yeah, it was a little hard readjusting again, and also just things that we'll get into, I'm sure, throughout the course of the podcast. Just the usual navigating that we try to do between music, our passionate hobby, and our jobs / careers, our personal lives, just everything that kind of weighs on you. And but yeah, yesterday I had a pretty breakthrough moment to finish the week, and I just was like, I'm trying to feel grateful, like we always talk about, just feeling grateful, because a lot of people don't have privileges and opportunities, and I know I don't want to necessarily make it about this, but I know that right now it's a pretty tumultuous time, and the climate is certainly not conducive to a lot of positivity right now, but and I certainly don't have an answer for any of that. I don't have a lot to say other than the fact that I just want. I hope everything is. I hope everyone is trying to be as healthy as they can for themselves and are allowed to be as healthy as they can in spite of everything that's happening, because it's just such a, I just see it all the time. I mean, we've talked about social media and the kinds of, the things that, are obviously, it's a reflection, right? Social media is a reflection of what's happening in the world, and it's
Yeah.
it's pretty chaotic right now, needless to say. That social media is definitely a reflection of that. It's chaotic times out there, and this is just something that we get to do to hopefully keep ourselves sane. And I really do wish the same for everybody, because they may not have
as much privilege.
Right. As much privilege. They may not have the support, the stability. I mean, I just kind of always want what's best for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Not to sound like the character from Mean Girls, like, I just wish I could bake a cake full of hearts and or hugs or something. And
she doesn't even go.
Yeah, she doesn't even go.
I need that sound.
You need that sound
Ooh,
effect.
kill him.
I really do want. I hope that everyone is finding some kind of peace, and whatever direction things are going, we're trying to hope for the best.
Yeah, definitely.
And that if it gets to that point, we all just gotta throw down and say, like, hey, we're not gonna stand by.
We're not.
We're not gonna take it.
That's
Yeah.
another sound I need.
But anyways, I don't know why I felt like I went off on there a little bit.
No, that's good, man.
Yeah,
It's been a rough week, dude. I myself had a pretty tough week as well, like
Yeah.
work and just things. But it's crazy, man. Like, I think me and you had kind of a little bit of a how would you say it? It's like a light at the end of the tunnel kind of situation.
Yeah, like a mutual epiphany or something, or a mutual.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, we both kind of had a similar like thing happen
Yeah.
recently that I feel like is kind of cool. Like, it's
You're talking
weird.
about the shows.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
a little bit. It's a little bit. What would you even say?
Serendipitous.
I was gonna say auspicious, but what does auspicious mean?
I don't even remember.
Suspicious.
Yeah.
A little.
It's a little. I'm a little suspicious.
I'm a little suspicious.
No, yeah. So obviously, having gone to Vegas last week, we avoided. Kayla and I avoided South by Southwest, but we are currently in the wake of South by Southwest, which usually I feel it does a lot to the city of Austin. Obviously, it's a very celebrated festival. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about it. It takes up a lot of space and time in the city's consciousness. A lot of people say that it's not what it used to be. A lot of people say, hey, it is what it is. We're trying the best that we can. Exactly. Flatulence. But the thing that I think has kind of been a common thread is that every time, once South by concludes, it usually leads to a very, just in the wake of it concluding, a lot of people get inspired, and I see that from like Craigslist ads going up all of a sudden, or just people suddenly feeling like, hey, we got to do something, we got to put something together.
You think it's a FOMO kind of thing?
I think so. I mean,
like,
but
oh no, I didn't get to play.
Oh, I think it's just easy. It's easier to get inspired when it's everywhere, right? And so the more that you see it, it's very, it obviously has saturated Austin. People see that and they feed off of it. I think it's more like they feed off of it. There obviously is some FOMO. I think but it's I think it's something more sincere. I feel like there's something more authentic about
fear of being left out.
Yeah,
FOBLO.
That sounds awful.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks.
No, it's funny, dude. I did go to a couple unofficial showcases.
You got to check them out.
Yeah, the bands were interesting. The little like shows were interesting. It's funny, man. Like, DIY is the same everywhere.
Yeah,
it is. Like, anyone that disagrees with me, I don't care.
It's just a bunch of people
getting together,
a bunch of friends,
and playing music.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it ties into what you were saying last time about there's no such thing as bad. There's no good or bad.
No.
It's just you're throwing down for your friends and you're putting in the work and you're doing the best that you can.
And isn't that really what music's all about? Like,
I mean,
it's the communal aspect of it. I think we pay attention too much, as you were talking about earlier, like the social media, like part of it.
Yeah.
It's like a reflection of our society. I kind of think it's a reflection of what I think. It's two things. It's like it's a reflection of like what I think society wants to be,
Yeah, the aspirations.
the aspirations,
Yeah.
and it's also like it really reflects on all like the bad of things. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's just it's the two extremes. You
Sure.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's a lot of fantasy in ways, but it also is a lot of like reality in a lot of ways too.
absolutely. Yeah.
But it's funny because it's like, I forgot what I was saying. I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
DIY.
Oh yeah,
and,
yeah. Like
yeah.
it's the same everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Like I was going to these South by Southwest unofficial showcases, and like it just reminds me of the stuff we used to do back in Laredo.
Sure.
Like there's literally no difference.
Right.
And for as much as like I think social media paints, or just even just legend and lore, like paints Austin as like the live music capital of the world, and like this crazy like
Mecca.
mecca of
Yeah.
music, and this crazy like you know not to quote Mean Girls again, but we wore pink on Wednesdays kind of situation.
Right.
It's not, man. It's just like everywhere else.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just like everywhere else. You just gotta.
So not exclude, like there's no exclusionary aspect to it. It's pretty much like
I think there can be.
Yeah.
If I think that exists.
yeah.
But it's like, it's I hate to say it's like kind of like high school, but it's not like high. It's in ways it's kind of like it's a social thing.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't just go up and like sit at somebody's table. I mean, you can do that, but
Yeah.
it's a little bold. But
Yeah.
people have a right to feel a little bit like suspicious
Mm.
about strangers and stuff, and
Right.
you coming in and encroaching on their safe space.
Right.
It's funny. I feel like we weren't gonna talk about like booking or like shows and stuff. like
Well,
we were saying
it's
before, but
it's hard. It's hard because I feel like the common thread so far has been that we just talk about what's happening,
yeah,
and it usually ends up being about some combination of music and mental health.
yeah,
And I feel like the aspect that we wanted to talk about in a good and possibly bad way is, so in the wake of South by Southwest, people are getting back to it, wanting to play shows again,
Yeah.
or wanting to play more shows, wanting to get themselves out there, which is a constant thing. It's, Austin is definitely well saturated with bands and venues that, they try to book themselves into. So I had I've been trying to put in the work because
Yes.
you realize that even the things that you love take work.
Of course.
And so, I've been trying to put in some work to get booked at some places. I was fortunate to play 2 shows in February with the new project, Ari and the Artifacts.
Nice.
And thank you.
Obama.
And so now, continuing that momentum can be a little elusive.
Yeah.
Because, especially for a new band,
Mhm.
I mean, we have all of 80 followers on Instagram, which unfortunately can be a huge factor as to why people get booked and why they don't.
You'd be surprised, man. I like some of the Austin bands we've booked in
Yeah.
Laredo. They themselves will also be like, it's hard to book in Austin.
It is.
You know what I mean?
It
It doesn't
is.
matter how much momentum you have. It's just
It's easier to probably get booked outside of Austin first
Mhm.
and see how that goes, and
Mhm.
then sort of,
a little bit of a reputation.
wedge your foot in the door and say like, hey, we've been around for a while.
Yeah.
But so I reached out to a venue, and after giving it about 2 weeks, I followed up, and sure enough, they actually responded. And so we are looking.
Kill him.
Thank you. We are looking to play a show at the end of May. So, assuming nothing else happens between now and then, that'll be our next show.
Nice.
Obviously, I'm holding out hope that some of the other emails I've sent out will come back. We'll get some bites. But if not, there's this show to look forward to. And immediately I have to say that I thought of you and wanting to get you involved. Yeah. And ironically, or I don't know if that's the right word.
That's what I was trying to say earlier. Like,
Maybe.
is it auspicious? Is it suspicious? It's a word.
Yeah, it's something. It's a word that implies, oddly enough, you got also an email, right?
Yeah,
through Bandcamp.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I always have these like not always. I say it like it happens regularly. There's been a couple times
Yeah.
where I've had my music on Bandcamp.
Yeah.
And it's always because you're in the spiral.
Yeah.
But it's like I feel like people hear like the shoegazy thing, and that's like a big thing.
It
now,
it
right?
is, yeah. The shoegaze, kind of
yeah.
slow core or pop,
yeah.
bedroom pop.
Well, no. Funny enough, it's the only 2 songs I have on Bandcamp
Yeah.
are the 2 like most
Shoegazy,
shoegazy
yeah.
rock fucking songs. You
Just
know?
call your band Shugazi.
Yeah. What's it called? I have a story about that actually.
Ooh.
But
So you got hit up by
I got hit up by some guy.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Cold call, email. Hey,
Yeah.
can you play at Valhalla?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
are we saying names?
I don't know.
I
It's a staple. It's basically it's one of the venues that is definitely it's been around for a little bit. A lot of bands play there. A lot of bands try to play there. I think it's one of those great venues that you try to break into when you're first getting going, and then you hopefully return to when you've kind of built up a following.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and they do the normal thing, which I think is very. It's certainly something that I was familiar with in terms of. I'm sure maybe not just Austin, but other places. But they kind of have you take a certain day of the week, you know, either Monday through Wednesday, and they're like, "Hey, we'll see how you do. We'll see how it goes. Maybe the more shows you play, you come back and you play Thursday through Sunday."
It's the internship.
It's the internship. Yeah, exactly. It's like you're cutting your teeth.
Yeah.
You're seeing, also just getting a feel for it. And then hopefully you come back and you play a Friday or a Saturday.
Yeah. Also, you pull people on in the middle of the week, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
You're a badass.
If you got the pull or you've got the network or the support system, and people come out to see you on a Tuesday or Wednesday, that's a big deal because that's not common. I think we've talked about how yes, Austin is the live music capital of the world. Why? Because you can pretty much see a show every day of the week. That doesn't mean that people are going to the shows.
Yeah.
Though. That's the problem, and not a problem. It's just that's the reality. Is that everybody's got things to do.
Yeah.
Austin is a big place that has a lot of stuff to do, but also people have lives.
Yes.
People have jobs. People have obligations. So you can't always expect them to just come out for every show that you got. But if you can get them to come out on a Tuesday, more power to you.
Yeah. Definitely.
So you got this offer to essentially play, I think, about a month after the show that we're going to have.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
yours is in June, right?
22nd. Yeah.
So you're hopefully going to have this opportunity to play this venue twice.
I know, it's crazy.
Which is awesome. And this will be my first time playing that venue, so I'm very excited.
This is also like, writing off the fact that like for a whole year I was like, I'm not gonna do shows.
Right.
I'm not gonna do it. I need to like focus on other things.
And that's why I was a little hesitant because when we first got the response back from the venue and they said, hey, this is how it works. If you want the date, it's yours. Just you got to find 2 other bands. I immediately thought of bringing you on board because, but I also didn't want to pressure you because I know that you've been in that situation where, our show's something that I want to be involved with.
Yeah.
You've obviously had a long history of putting on shows, being in shows.
Yeah.
And as similar and on the same page as we have been, I also know that in some ways we're in different sort of phases of our pursuit of this musical endeavor thing, whatever it is.
It's funny that you say that. Like, I feel like in my lifetime, I've had 2 friends that, well, the word phases, I feel like has come up a lot in my life.
Right.
Pretty sure that happens for most people, right?
Sure,
but like, I've had 2 people in my lifetime that have like really made the word and the idea of phases, and especially with life, like really like impactful or like really like stick with me.
Yeah.
My friend Ricky and my other friend Raul.
Yeah.
They both have on separate occasions have like, told me that, well, for example, like with Raul Seca, actually, he's told me whenever I was having really tough time in Laredo, and like, I was feeling down and confused, alone, a lot, classic emotions. He's always just kind of been like, no, don't worry, man. Like, a lot of these things happen in phases. You know what I mean? It's just for right now.
Yeah.
You're not gonna always feel like this.
And I 100% agree with him. It's just difficult when you're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And when you're in the middle of it and you're trying to navigate it, and it's a little unnerving because you're not sure how long it's going to last.
Yeah.
There's a lot of uncertainty, and it's almost like you just have to get comfortable with it.
We were even talking about it like when we went to go eat. Like, I wish I could just articulate how I feel in reality in the moment versus like, months later or a year later, you're like, oh, actually, this is the way I was feeling.
The realization.
This is actually what I was feeling.
Yeah.
I just couldn't come up with the actual reason as to why. You know what I mean? It's not always clear in the moment,
right?
Like you're saying. And then my friend Ricky Six, R.I.P.
Rest in peace.
He's then this is more to like what you were saying. He would always say that like me and him would go through the same thing,
Yeah.
but he was always just going through it, you know, maybe last year
Sure.
or you know, and I was always going through it at that moment.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he was always kind of like, dude, like, you know, it's so crazy how you're always like going through these things like almost like a year after like I go through them.
Right.
And that idea of phases is kind of insane because it's like it's almost like there's this element of like as a musician you kind of go through these like, you know, trials of like, you know, when you're playing shows or when you're involved in like a musical community or when you're writing music or, you know, the different facets of like music and it as a hobby.
Right.
Not everybody has a very linear like thing with it, but there's always kind of these elements to it that it's like you experience a majority of it during a certain part of your life and maybe others don't, but then they do it at a different point and then maybe you yourself aren't, you know what I mean? So it's like it's funny how it's like it's not linear. It's not a linear progression.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, yeah, I've definitely struggled with that, and I'm sure plenty of people have. Where why didn't it line up?
In the way that I was that I wanted it to.
Exactly, and we were talking about this earlier about expectations, right, and aspirations, and how sometimes, as much as they are useful to kind of give you motivation, they also, in some ways, if you don't approach it the right way, it can box you in.
Yeah.
Because you start feeling like, oh, well, now there's a time crunch and now there's a deadline and all these things. When no, I mean, there's flexibility. You're only as I feel like all of these things are only as flexible as you're willing to make them for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, there have been plenty of times where I've had to look back with some semblance of possible regret and just say like, why couldn't that line up the way that I wanted it to? Could have been so perfect, But to each their own. You kind of just have to take what comes, you know. And I think I've been able to stand by for the most part on saying like, hey, I don't regret a whole lot. I like where I'm at. I wouldn't trade it. I don't want to go back and recapture youthful glory or whatever. It's just I know that I'm wiser now, and I just want to use that wisdom to hopefully move forward gracefully, artistically, and however in whatever way is possible.
Living passively or like the idea of living passively just sometimes feels like impossible. It's like, how do you just go with the flow, quote unquote? How do you just, take it day by day, all the,
especially because all these, all these external things that are happening, whether it's creatively or societally, like it's gonna affect you. It's gonna impose on you. And you're
gonna feel certain ways.
You're gonna feel certain ways. You're gonna get influenced. You're gonna get affected. It's a daily struggle. That's why you take action when you feel like it. You try to do what you can.
It's like you're saying earlier, like coming off of South by and everybody's like, oh, we need to do something.
Right.
It's that societal pressure of like, I didn't play during South by, or even if you did play during South by, it's like I want to continue that. I want to feel that more.
Right. Exactly. And it's applicable in a lot of different walks of life, obviously. But in this regard, what we're talking about, as far as music and creativity, like it is hard to go with the flow. But in some ways, that's when it happens the best and most organically.
That's the challenge.
Yeah. Bless you.
Thank you. That's the challenge, man. Like, I think that really is like, if life is difficult in any way, you can make what did my friend, we're talking about like working out. That was kind of like the point of like what we were saying. It was like, you choose your suffering. It's like, do you want to suffer in the gym or do you want to suffer on the couch?
On the couch.
You know what I mean? It's both suffering. It's just one's kind of better for you.
Right.
And to that point, it's like you kind of choose your suffering in the same way. It's like, do you just go with the flow? It's difficult to do that.
Yeah.
But I'd rather choose that difficult than choose the difficulty of like being confused, being regretful, being any of those type of, bad emotions. I rather like and they say pick your poison. It's like, I rather my poison be that I'm struggling to stay in this, blissful Zen like state of like, I'm just taking it day by day, man.
Yeah. And I think it kind of goes back to something that I've sort of applied to my own way of thinking, in that no one gets out alive. Like, you're going to suffer regardless.
Yeah.
You either suffer early on, and maybe get some kind of wisdom from it, or you maybe have a smoother time. Like I would be the first one to say I had a very easy time growing up.
Mhm.
It was very little trial and tribulation
Yeah.
that did not set me up to be for things to be any smoother later in life.
Mhm.
In fact, it all kind of hit at once in some ways, and so you can't escape it. That's
Yeah.
just the way that life is, and
Yeah.
you deal with it accordingly,
Mhm.
and hopefully constructively. And then of course, there are people that just you almost take a step back and say, like, are they just meant to suffer? And that you almost can't do anything except obviously approach those individuals in those situations with like an open heart and an open mind,
Mm.
and be the best person that you can to them and to everyone. Um, and also just accept the fact that, hey, like, not everyone has the privileges and the opportunities that
Yeah.
that certain people are afforded, that I've been afforded, that other
Yeah.
other people have been afforded. And there are people that are vultures, and they'll take advantage of those opportunities and weaponize them against other people. And
Yeah.
it's just, yeah. So, needless to say, all of these things can kind of weigh heavy on the mind and the heart, and like we've been talking about. So, yesterday was kind of the culmination of all these very conflicting, very difficult feelings, and I had myself a little bit of a breakdown, as Paul Simon
Mhm.
once sang. And yeah, it was just the idea of like, man, there's just obviously a lot of unfairness, a lot of injustice. We always try to focus on ourselves a lot. We obviously talk about our struggles, which I think is extremely healthy and helpful. And yeah, I think yesterday was just part of that. It's
Yeah.
just kind of all of that sort of coming to a head, and trying to deal with it constructively, and hopefully that you do better next time.
Yeah.
And that's, in some ways that's what we have to hope for. But how have you been? How have you been handling some of these things? I know it was somewhat difficult week for you too. There's been some stress.
Yeah.
Um,
It's you handle, heavy weight like anybody else.
Yeah.
It crushes you, or
Right.
you bear with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get tired of bearing it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it does crush you a little bit, but it's like it's only gonna crush you as much as you let it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I had a tough week, but I there's something that I really want to like internalize moving forward. It's like, and this might be sound crazy, but it's like I'm almost grateful for my struggle
Sure.
because it's not that difficult in the grand scheme of
Yeah.
things. It's difficult for me.
Right.
It's specially made to be difficult for specifically me.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful that it could be 1,000 times
Sure.
worse. It could be 1,000
Yeah.
times more difficult, and I'm almost grateful for my struggle because every time I've had a moment where it's just too much, like I always come out of the other side like 10 times stronger than I was, you
Yeah.
know? And you were asking me earlier in the car, you're like, how do you feel like your transition to Austin really like,
Right.
panned out? And I'm like, it sucked, man, but
Yeah.
like everything's great.
Yeah.
Isn't that ironic? It's like it was so like I did not enjoy myself,
Right.
but I'm in such a good position.
Right.
I have
Right.
a great job, like my relationship's like the best it's ever been. I have all these good things going, and now like almost reverse manifesting a lot of these like show opportunities,
Sure.
and like
Sure.
things are so good right now. And like it was tough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's such a confusing feeling. It's like I'm grateful for my struggle because it's been like putting me in such a great position.
Yeah, and I definitely felt the need to ask you just point blank about the transition, because I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we've talked about it or addressed it indirectly. I think I just felt like it was almost my way of checking in with you, in a way, and just saying like, hey, like we've obviously been friends for a while. You've been at this thing for a while in terms of music, but also like the huge life change of moving to a new place and
Yeah.
having a new job, and the reality of the pandemic was hitting, and all of these things that affected how you were, coming into these things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sort of walking into a really tense situation,
Yeah.
and I know you've talked about how all of that had taken its toll on your mental health, on your
Oh, yeah.
relationship, and all that stuff. But in spite of all those things are so much more, in a much better place.
Yeah.
And so you can't necessarily say that things would have been easier or better or more positive if you hadn't gone through those things.
I think that's, takes brings it back to like what we were saying. You choose your suffering.
Yeah.
You know, do you want to be suffering and have nothing, or do you want to be suffering and have a little more catered to what you want?
Right.
You know what I mean? I think at some point it's gonna stop being suffering, and it's just gonna be the way life is.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be challenges. There's
Yeah.
gonna be adversity, but you take it head on because it's gonna like reward you in some way.
Sure.
I kind of like I was talking to J Ram the other day, and I kind of like was getting a little like emotional about it because I don't know if you can see over there in the corner of the room. I hit 5 years of service with the state.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you've been at it for a while.
Yeah, and
It's been the best job you've had, I think.
and honestly, in my opinion, the really only job I've ever had. I've had other jobs,
Yeah.
but this is the only.
This
one
is
that,
the grown-up job.
This is the grown-up job. This
Yeah.
is the real job. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they gave me a pin and everything, and it's like
Nice.
5 years. I put it on my lanyard, my work lanyard, and
Yeah.
stuff. And I remember getting it in the mail and really looking at it and being so angry.
Yeah.
So angry and so resentful and so like upset,
Mm-hmm.
which is strange, right? Because it's like you would think like, oh man, like you get filled with like happiness because it's like I accomplished this.
Right.
And I realized recently, which as which I think was the culmination of like a lot of things, but also is kind of like the core theme of what I feel like my next life lesson is.
Okay.
And I'll go back to that right now, what I mean by that, but is I feel like I don't know how do I say this? I don't know how to enjoy my accomplishments.
Okay.
Because when I got those things in the mail, I was just so mad, bro. I was so mad. I was so angry. I was so resentful. Because instead of receiving those things and being like, I did it.
Okay.
My first thought was like, I would have gotten here if it wasn't for, and then insert whatever. Like I'm like,
Okay.
resentful or angry. And I got a little emotional about it, man, because I'm like, I was talking about it with J-Ram, and I'm like, dude, I don't know why I get so mad when I accomplish things.
Yeah.
And like, I think about like the times in like Laredo and stuff, and all the all the shit we did and all the shit we accomplished. I don't think about it like that, like passively. I always think about all the bad times.
Right.
I always think about all these like fuck.
So
yeah.
your first instinct when you
When I-
accomplish something is to go to the bad times.
Think about when you messaged me the other day and you were like, how do you feel going down memory lane posting all these videos on your Instagram?
Right.
Because
yeah.
I recently made an Instagram where I've been posting a lot of my old
It's
live,
like an archive.
like an archive of my
Yeah,
old
which has
live
been
vids.
great. Yeah, it's been great.
It's so crazy, thinking about all like the things, the shows I've played in the past and all these.
Yeah.
And it's nice that I have all these videos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To like be able to like look back on and be like, oh, I did this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny, like I think you messaged me that and I just said something fucking negative. You know what I mean? I was just like, it just makes
I don't even remember. And I hate that I don't. I wouldn't be surprised because I know that you do have sort of a I don't even know how to
like
describe
a
it.
love-hate.
Yeah.
But it's not even that, but
I
there's
guess
like,
it's
but there's no love. You know what I mean? The
Yeah,
love
it's-
is the desire to do it, but the hate is the entire thing.
right. Cuz yeah, you've had your share of disappointment with it and you've had
Yeah.
your share of struggle with it.
Yeah.
And it obviously hasn't been nearly as smooth as like here in Austin as it was then. But the thing is, you had the network, you had the community, you had the support system, and it's hard because you're out here now essentially, without that,
I think the toughest thing, and I'm like realizing that now, like, cause now, I guess to go back to what I was saying earlier, it's like, I feel like since I've moved,
Yeah.
I've been very aware of these like almost like themes, these morals, these lessons I'm learning every year,
Right.
and how those overall like themes of the year are teaching me some lesson. And when I learn this lesson, I advance.
Yeah.
I get better as a person.
Yeah.
And I've had like a different theme every year of like the hard life lesson that I'm learning, whether it's learning to set boundaries. Like last year
Sure.
was like my biggest theme was learning to set boundaries.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Saying no,
Right.
being Like, hey, you know what? Let me prioritize the things I need to handle in my life
Sure.
first and foremost, and then everybody else can like, have a turn at some point
Sure.
if I choose it.
Yeah, it's interesting that assertiveness is not just the will and the wherewithal to do something, but it's also the will and the wherewithal to not do something if you know that it's not good for you.
Yeah.
So
and-
you can still be assertive in not doing something, in
Yeah.
setting the boundaries,
Yeah.
in saying like this is not going to be healthy
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
People need to respect that.
Yeah. And I had a hard time because in my mind, if I said no, I was expecting some kind of like
Backlash or something.
backlash.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I just struggled.
You were
Meaning-
expecting a WWF pay-per-view.
Yeah, on
backlash.
they're gonna cut a promo on me and be
Yeah.
like,
You just made the list!
like,
Excellent.
yeah, and like I didn't want to feel
Yeah.
like because I told you no, you were gonna hate me.
Right.
But
yeah.
but as a result of being like that,
Yeah.
I expected everybody else to be like that,
yeah, I understand that.
and that was bad, and that was very bad, and I finally got through that. I finally, am able to set like more boundaries for myself, have more realistic expectations, be more vocal about stuff, be more communicative about stuff.
Right.
That's also like something that I didn't realize I wasn't doing for a long time, which was in my mind, and especially since in the time that you've known me,
Yeah.
I've always like been really open about how I'm feeling about stuff.
Sure.
Like even if I don't know 100% how I'm feeling in that moment, I'm just like, the more I try to like put words to it
Yeah.
or write it down or say it or something, like I feel like I'm inching closer to knowing how I feel.
Yeah.
But I haven't always been like that. I did not know that. I didn't know I was a suffer in silence guy for a long time. That was news to me when I heard it.
Well, how did this come up? How did you hear about this? Did somebody give you some feedback, or
Raul Sauceda?
Seka
He was
the
just
one?
like, because I was telling him, I was
It's
like,
always going to come from somebody else and somebody that knows you
yeah,
and has known you.
yeah, because I was talking about like how how tough of a time I was having in
Yeah.
Laredo and all this stuff, and he was just like, man, dude, I didn't know. Like,
Yeah.
that's actually surprising to me. Like, you never said anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talked about it with Nicole because there was a point during the pandemic where she was like, I don't like that you try to feel like you're trying to like, what did she say?
Power through or something.
No, I
or-
don't like that you feel like you have to do a lot of these things alone.
Oh,
or
I
you
see.
don't want to ask for help.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
yeah.
I don't know what you mean. And now looking back on it, I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I would suffer in silence.
Right.
I would tack on these things alone. Didn't know I did that.
Sure.
But that's also where that communication and those boundaries come in, and saying no, because in the same sense that same skill that you need to create boundaries is also the same skill you need to be able to communicate how you're feeling.
Right.
Especially if shit is tough.
Yeah.
And that was the bulk of last year, like the lessons I was really learning.
Right.
Now the theme for this year is very different. The theme for this year is now, how do I not be so like angry and resentful with anything, with not only like my accomplishments but also my failures?
Right.
How do I not take those things so hard?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that's a common thing people go through. Like, it's just like, why am I so mad? For what reason?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it just takes the will of reframing. Is realizing that it's that a failure is really just an opportunity for learning, or a failure is just, well, at least you're at a point where, okay, so maybe that didn't go as I was hoping or I thought, but maybe I'll get a second chance to pivot.
And that's the reframing. Also,
Yeah.
on to add to that, it's like what we were talking about earlier. Like, it's how you perceive the failure. I feel like you define your failures.
Yeah.
You define your accomplishments. You know what I mean?
Well,
That's what
certainly in the way that we add, what value do you attach to it to begin with?
Exactly. So remember we were talking about like, and I remember we were just like, we're not gonna talk about booking now because it's just like we spend so much time, on the
Lambasting it,
Yeah,
and going
like-
after it, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the less that we, put value on it, all of a sudden
it reverse manifested. And I hate how life works that way, but
Yeah.
it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You choose your suffering.
Exactly.
But you also define your not your expectation, but like you define how you receive the event. You know what I mean?
Right.
And or the reaction to your output, I guess, right?
Right.
Because it's like we were saying, like you can't go fishing and be mad that the fish didn't want to get caught.
Yeah, that was a good point that you made. Yeah.
That's the, you know,
you can't be mad at the fish for not like. It's not like they don't like you or something. It's just
yeah,
they're doing their own thing.
exactly, bro. They exist within their own like
Yeah,
you know realm of
just-
existence.
We just like we all do. You know, everybody has. You know, hopefully, right? There are very, very specific and powerful exceptions, but everybody has, you know, the free will, the autonomy, you know, the agency, I guess you can call it, right? And I think in these moments and opportunities of feeling empowered, the best you can do is be as positive and giving with that opportunity. Yes, for yourself, but also for other people. And the more that you feel empowered, it should empower you that you want to sort of pass that on to other people. And it kind of goes back to that community building that you're always talking about. It's like, hey, if I'm in a good place, what can I do to sort of bring other people into that good place?
Exactly.
You know, and it'll return to you tenfold.
Of course.
You know, and again, there are always others that are trying to manipulate it and to try to sabotage it. But I don't know. It's a powerful thing when you feel empowered and in a positive way.
Yeah.
And it can certainly knock down some doors. And you know, I think that's what we're hopefully trying to discover within ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, and we talk about a lot is just having that empowerment for ourselves, and hopefully it leading to more and more good things, not just within the realm of music, but just in our lives, other people's lives, affecting change and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm on a soapbox, man. I'm trying I'm trying to be the change
Oh, brother, this guy stinks.
I'm trying to be the change, man, but it's hard when, you know, you've spent so much time like hunkered over, you know, your own test, you know, and you're trying to, you know, find the answers for yourself. But, you know,
a lot of it is that you kind of have to relinquish control.
Yeah.
In all senses, it's like you don't have control over others. You don't have control, or for the most part, even like, you know, of your own life in some ways. You know, you have a little bit of like, you know, you can do actions, but the result of those actions are always going to be whatever they're going to be.
That's true.
So you have control, but maybe there's like an illusion of
That's
control.
That's a really good point. I mean, you can decide what move you're going to make. You won't know what that move leads to.
Exactly.
What the results. You hope that it's something positive and that it inspires, or that it at least, you know, you can reap some benefit of it if you want to look at it at kind of like a tunnel sort of, you know, way.
Yeah.
But you don't know.
And that's where those expectations like can really like destroy you.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I feel like what I was saying earlier, where I'm like, I accomplished these things and I'm so angry about it because it's like, well, I would have done it faster, or like I would have like done it better, or I would have
if not for these things. Yeah,
but then that's where like your expectations like lead you to feel that way.
Right.
That's another thing that I think that's my theme for this year. It's like how to relinquish expectations and just kind of go with the flow.
Right.
That's really like, you know, and you bring that up, and the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, maybe that is the thing.
That perspective of you know, where you would see your accomplishments and instead kind of focus on the negative. It reminds me as if, like, let's say the villain in the Scooby-Doo cartoon actually gets away with it, but then he's still like, and I would have gotten away with it even better if it wasn't for you.
Yeah, literally.
It's like, but you won, bro.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck.
But so somehow, you know, despite even still succeeding, you still sabotage yourself by saying like, well, I could have succeeded more, or I could have done these things in this way.
If it wasn't there for those fucking meddling kids. Yeah.
If it wasn't for you pissants.
Yeah. Pissants. You plebeians.
Right. It's hard, man. It's hard. It's funny how sometimes accomplishment or success is just as big of a deterrent sometimes than
it's just how you choose to assign value to it, how you said. It's just like you choose your victories, you choose your failures. You don't really have to. No one's putting a gun to your head saying, you know, now pick out which ones are your losses.
Right.
Like, Oh wait, yeah, I actually don't have to do that. So if it were up to me, I've had no losses
Yeah,
because everything has been a win in its own way. Why don't I just naturally think like that?
for sure.
Because you got to pick your struggle. You got
Yeah.
to pick your suffering. I have to make myself feel like, no, bro, like I am like a winner. I do deserve this. I am enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe wasn't that the theme that we were like talking about the other day? It's like I am enough.
Yeah.
I am good enough to get booked. I am good enough, for whatever job. I am good enough for this partner. I am good
Yep.
enough for whatever.
Yep.
I'm good enough. And that's difficult to do. That's difficult to do, and that's difficult to stay in that mindset. What were you saying earlier? We were like, it's crazy how like I can have this certain mentality for like, a week or two, and then I do it again.
Yeah.
I do the thing where I feel bad again.
It's just it's a never ending. It's a daily challenge. I mean, I think it was David Foster Wallace who, admittedly was probably a pretty flawed individual, but he was a writer. And I remember him giving a speech for a commencement, and he was just talking about how the default setting is that sort of mentality of selfishness, negativity, and we see it every day. People stuck in that default in all at all levels in society.
Yeah.
From the bottom to the top,
Yeah.
just stuck in that default setting and and because of it, making themselves and everyone else suffer
Yeah.
because of that.
Obama.
Exactly. It's gonna get really heated.
Yeah.
But if you can fight against that default setting,
Yeah.
if you can fight against these base, instincts and urges, and take some time to see things from other people's perspective and realize that everybody deserves a shot.
Yeah.
Everybody deserves, an opportunity, and not to see people as less than.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that see everybody else as just a means to an end.
You're what is it? The pissants.
The pissants.
It wasn't for you pissants.
And it's frustrating. It's obviously frustrating. It's frustrating because you can see how a whole society of people that never learned to get out of their own way essentially construct a society that has caused that across the board.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like,
yes, yes.
it's almost like, to some degree, right? It's a level of mental illness that breeds mental illness, and it's just, I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's everywhere, and some people are deeply, deeply, ill, emotionally and mentally, and for some, opportunities to be able to heal that are not available.
Yeah.
And the people that are able to do that do have the opportunity, are they taking those opportunities? No. They're making it, in fact, they're making it harder for everybody to get those opportunities. And so I think part of why I like having these discussions is because it keeps me in check.
Yeah.
Because if I can just lay it out here and we can talk about it, and I mean, I've done I've done therapy. I've had my share of time with speaking to somebody about issues and things like that. And I'm a huge advocate for mental health all day long, because there was a time when I was ignoring my own, and there was a time when I wasn't existing in a space where that was even, something that was talked about.
Yeah.
And the amount of awareness and positivity that can come from just being able to work on yourself.
Yeah.
Like we are able to do. Like, we talk about these things, we discuss these things. It sort of gives me hope, and one of the things that I hope is, I'm like, if it keeps me grounded, if it keeps me, aware and balanced, then I can hopefully take these things out into the world in my own way, because everybody's got their own struggle.
Yeah.
And there are people that are way more equipped than you and I are for certain battles,
Yeah.
right? And, maybe there'll be a point where we can reach that plateau, or that status of like, well, we're trying to fight the good fight and all that stuff. But man, like, it's hard out there.
I think that's the thing. We talk about these things like community. We talk about these things like advocating for yourself. Setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Like we were saying earlier. It's you kind of just need to like, how would you even say it? Like you gotta. There's no just default feel good.
Right.
There's no
Yeah.
feel good. Um, I don't think you can just like feel good all the time.
No,
You know,
yeah.
like, you're gonna have your lows, phases.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're
Yep.
gonna have your lows. You're gonna have your highs. I think that's okay. I think you can't let it like kick you in the ass too hard.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like a trying to balance a knife or something.
you know, and it's in you. It's not only like what I was saying earlier, like, you know, learning to set boundaries with others.
Yeah.
You also got to learn to set boundaries with yourself.
With yourself, 100%. And it does, and being better and being good with yourself, and that doesn't mean rewarding yourself or thinking that you're the hot shit or something. It just means that you are trying to bring yourself to awareness, because the better that you are to yourself in that respect, the better you're going to be to everybody else.
Yeah.
And that will hopefully be the point. You know, that will hopefully kind of get things, you know, in a more productive space. But I mean, it starts with the individual. It has to start with the individual.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? You know, because as we well know, there can be the best intentions, but the people that are behind those best intentions are still flawed individuals. You know?
And we all are, man. We all are. Everybody. That's why you like, you know, these ideas of like, you know, being resentful, being hateful, being spiteful. It's like there's no point to them. You know what I mean? There's a root, but it doesn't mean it has to like grow.
Yeah.
You know, and you only let it grow as much as you want it to. I think, you know, as far as for me, like, you know, my life lesson of the year is to just relinquish more control.
Yeah.
Relinquish even more control, because
Right.
I have less than what I realize. And it's just, yeah, man, going with the flow.
Well, and just a matter of letting the things that should grow. If it's a flower that's going to bloom, you let it grow. If it's
Yeah.
a weed, you got to choke it out.
Yeah,
If it's the weed of like selfishness and you know, ignorance and all that stuff, like you can't let that grow.
yeah.
That has to be the thing, that because that doesn't benefit anybody.
Yeah.
Certainly not yourself. You're keeping yourself in the dark.
Yeah.
You know. But no, I totally get that. There's so many facets to this, you know,
This is a really like general
discussion. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we definitely ride on the back of music for sure, you know, or maybe music rides on our backs, but it's a matter, I think we talked about this last time, is like bringing the same kind of creativity to music, or bringing the same kind of creativity to life that you bring to music.
Yeah.
Everything can be a creative endeavor.
Yeah.
Everything deserves to be looked at artistically
Mm.
from different angles.
Yeah.
I'm constantly amazed at the stuff that you come out with creatively, because I know that you have a system, right? You've got like a pattern. You have things that work for you that you know well, that have served you.
Yeah.
But it never seems like you're boxed in by them. Would you say that that's true? Like you never let yourself get hindered or held back by what you know is tried and true, is tested. You seem to always kind of step outside the boundaries.
I like to do a certain type of thing, maybe for like one or two songs.
Okay.
Or just ideas. And then I like to try new stuff,
Yeah.
man. You know, you were talking about today, or you were saying that after you had your conversation with Kayla, you were like, "Oh, we went to go try 2 new restaurants."
Yeah.
And you know, going out to eat today, we were like, "Let's go try something new," and like we didn't, because
Right.
like we just didn't, right? But
Yeah.
but there's that idea of new. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just for the sake of new.
Yeah.
And I feel like I approach that with music. It's just always like, well, what can I do different?
And do you feel like that same philosophy of like, hey, I'm going to do things a certain way for a little bit and then I'm going to try something new? Do you feel like that is something that you've applied to your life?
No, and I should.
Okay.
And I should, because when I try to do something new, like in life, it always leads to good shit.
Okay.
But there's always this like struggle with it. There's always this like reluctance, this
Right.
fight
Right.
to not do the new thing.
Yeah. I wonder, I mean, so I'm asking, obviously, I feel like it's pretty obvious that like, oh, you know, he who creates creatively lives creatively and all that stuff. But it almost makes me wonder as to why, maybe that's why your output, your music and your creative output feels so authentic, because that's really where you're most at home.
Yeah.
You find a little cushion that feels comfortable, but then you branch out and you try different things.
Yeah.
And so I always felt like no wonder he comes out with so much material, and no wonder it's so effective. Just from a authenticity, we were talking about authenticity last time.
Mm-hmm.
Something that comes across as, hey, this is coming straight from him.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting that some people, like, I don't know if you feel like you are one of these people, but like you almost live more authentically in your work, your creative output, than in your own life.
Yeah.
Or that you have more agency in your work
Mm-hmm.
than your life.
Yeah,
you know.
because when I do a thing creating, I can 9 times out of 10 get the result I'm searching for.
Right.
Whereas in life, that's not always the case.
Right.
There's, you do a thing and you hope for the best.
Yeah.
Whereas in music, you do a thing and you do the thing.
You do the thing, and you're good with it. Like,
Yeah.
you feel good about it.
Yeah.
Not to keep on bringing him up, but he is one of my favorites. Paul Simon has said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
He's like, there's not a problem that you can't solve in the studio.
Yeah.
There's not a problem that you can't solve in the rehearsal room or the recording room or whatever. There's going to be a result.
Mm-hmm.
It's like math.
Yeah.
You're going to end up with,
Yeah.
Something. It's not like life.
No, life
It's
is
not like
life is very chaotic.
Yeah.
And learning to relinquish control
Right.
in a creative space in itself is difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not impossible. But to do that in life is very, like, it sometimes feels impossible because it's like, God forbid you have desires, God forbid you have expectations.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they're not always the best thing,
Right.
right? You kind of have to just come at it, like, literally, like, on some, stoner philosophy, and just be like, it's all good, man.
Right. It's all gravy.
It's all gravy. Just go with the flow, man.
Yeah.
We're like water, man.
Yeah, right.
There's a car, man, and it runs on water. Like, and you kind of need to be like that with life, man. Because it's just
Yeah.
like, you got to relinquish control. You got to just go with the flow. There was something you said earlier. I'm trying to remember, like, what you said. I want to make that the title of the episode. I'll go through it and I'll try to see, like, what it was. But there's just this weird, like, things aren't as hard. Things are as hard as you're going to make them.
Right.
But it's like, you choose like I keep saying, I keep reiterating, and it's just like you choose your suffering. And, usually, like, the suffering that produces the most fruit should be the thing that, like.
Well, and while we're on, we've talked about reframing, right? We say, choose your suffering. Some people might say, well, shouldn't it be like, choose your adventure?
Yeah.
Because, like, this is the adventure. Like, this is the whole thing. Like,
Yeah.
In some ways, it's liberating to say this is all we got.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And yes, choose your suffering, pick your poison,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also choose your adventure.
Yeah.
And yes, in some adventures there is difficulty and suffering
struggle.
and conflict, and there's dragons, and there's but
There's dungeons.
and there's dungeons and there's dragons, and sometimes the dungeons have dragons.
Mm.
And isn't there a game called?
No, I don't think
No. Oh, okay. That's that must be jail cells and.
No.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Jail cells and lizards. But yeah, I mean, we only get this opportunity. We're just trying to go through it the best that we can.
Yeah.
And we can choose to suffer at all, or we can choose to kind of hopefully see things as an adventure. And I guess that's why I love mythology so much, because like within those stories, it's basically you find out kind of how to live.
Yeah.
Show me how to live!
No, dude. Another thing too is like, well, like, I wanted to ask you. So, for this show,
Yep.
at Valhalla,
Yeah.
what are your hopes for it? What do you want out of it?
You mean the show on May 27th?
Yeah,
From 9 to whenever?
on 107.
Doors open at 8.
With your boys,
No.
Guns N'
Honestly, I don't really think I have any expectations. I think I have. I'm trying to see it more as like I don't have expectations, but I'm trying to look at things as opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
The first opportunity that I saw was like, hey, maybe this is a chance for Raul and I to play a show together.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about it before,
Mm-hmm.
and you've played, I think, 2 shows in how many years?
I only played one last year, and
Okay.
I played 1 or 2 in 2023.
Okay.
So in the past, like, 2 years, I played like 3 shows.
Yeah, so I mean, And there's not. It's not like there's somebody pointing to a board and saying like, "Oh, you need to have more. There needs to be more."
Yeah.
But I thought it would be good because again, it's almost like a throwback to the community that we were having, or you were having, especially in Laredo.
Yeah.
But also just an opportunity to just play a good show.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm just trying to have fun with it. I don't want to put pressure on myself like I used to and think like, why isn't anything going anywhere? Meanwhile, I wasn't even putting in the work.
Yeah.
I was just kind of waiting.
It's funny, like that show I did at Hole in the Wall, like in 2021.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we were just coming out of the pandemic, or we were still deep in it, right?
Yeah.
Futon Blonde asked me to play that show.
Yeah.
I remember just having this sense of like, you know what I mean? I had just come out of Laredo.
Yeah.
I was so like used to a certain thing, certain ease,
Yeah.
a certain. We're talking about like the having relinquishing control and creativity versus your life, and applying those same kind of like ethos to those things, right? I kind of had that like to some extent with like the show. Like I didn't think about a band.
Yep.
I didn't think about like
nothing.
What songs I was gonna play. I thought about nothing.
You just went up there and did your thing.
I just went up, and arguably that was one of my better shows that I played here. Like it was so.
It was a lot of fun. You had a lot of support from people from Laredo, including myself.
Yeah,
we were there, and you had a whole table.
I honestly thought I was getting gang stalked for a second there. Have I told you this story? This is gonna dip in a little deeper. I really want to tell you this story.
Okay.
Do you know what gang stalking is?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
it sounds terrible.
Yeah, gang stalking is the act in which like a group of people will isolate and victimize like a certain person by doing almost like repetitive actions to kind of like induce that feeling of like weird continuity and like deja vu in a way.
Oh, okay.
So imagine, it's to like harass, and victimize people.
Yeah, to make them feel like they're going crazy.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's a mental game. It's a head game.
Yeah.
But it's based on, hey, we're gonna physically be up in your space as often as possible,
or we're just gonna. There's gonna be a repetitive nature to what you're experiencing.
Gotcha.
And it's gonna make you feel like you're going crazy.
Interesting. So was having that table of people, is that what you thought was that?
No,
oh,
bro.
Okay.
So there is this thing that happened like 3 or 4 times. 3-4 times.
Okay.
Have that in your head.
That seems like a pattern already.
I got off of the stage and this girl came up to me and was like, oh, like that was really good. Like, you sang so angelic.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Or something to that effect. It was like
you've been told that before.
You sang so. I don't know about that, but like no, she said your voice was so angelic.
Okay.
Right? I was like, oh, thank you, whatever.
Yeah.
Left it at that. And then a couple of minutes go by, and another person comes up to me and goes, like, hey, that was really good. Like, your voice was so angelic.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And I was like, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Right? I'm sitting with you guys, and we're like chilling. We're chilling, bro.
Right.
I go outside, and I go hang out with Milo and Liam, I believe. Yeah. Like we were there.
That sounds.
Because I think you guys were sitting with.
We were
Nicole,
hanging. Yeah.
With Nicole's brother.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
It was a lot of people. It was a decent crowd. Yeah.
I remember going outside, and I was chilling with the drummer of Futon.
Yeah.
And there was another person that came up there like, oh hey, it was a dude. And it was like, hey man, like your voice was so like, I don't know how to like describe. It was like very angelic. And I was like,
okay,
this is getting kind of fun. So like,
I can see that.
It was really fucked up.
To be fair though, y'all, Raul's voice. Hey man, you sang really angelic.
That's it was so weird, man. It was so weird.
No, but
I hated that shit.
I can see the paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because I know what kind of person you are. I know that would probably kind of ruffle your feathers.
I hate that shit.
It probably would have gotten to me too to hear it so much. But then after a while, I would have been like, I guess my voice is angelic.
But bro, like for that type of like and for it to happen in a small like period of time was also just very disturbing.
Yeah, it was also a very new situation. I mean, you didn't, this was Austin. You hadn't really, I guess it was easy in Laredo because you kind of knew everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're dealing with a new crowd and stuff. But
yeah,
I for whatever it's worth, I think they were being genuine.
Yeah.
I think it was a coincidence, but I think they were being genuine because I honestly probably would describe your voice as angelic if I'm being 100% honest.
And all my life.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully that will not happen. Hopefully at these upcoming shows.
Yeah. Dude,
Yeah,
I just want to say,
Yeah.
that's so crazy
I know.
that not only the same venue,
Yep.
but kind of in the same
In the
period of time.
same time frame, roughly a month apart. You got invited. I mean, yeah, and I had it in my head immediately. I was like, I should talk to Raul. Let's see if he's down to play this show because
A little part of me is kind of getting on, like, I need to join your bandwagon. I just need to, like, just email people. You need to send me 'cause
context.
My big no, not contacts.
I don't have any.
I,
I have
no,
email addresses.
No, I need your email template.
Okay.
I don't know what to say in these things.
Yeah.
Or we could even do kind of like a joint, and now we're in the planning stage, right? It's like
Sure.
a joint effort kind of thing, because I feel like I can send emails.
Yeah.
My biggest thing is I just can't like when I get replies and stuff, like I
Yeah.
always get really nervous of how to reply because I don't want to
Gotcha.
say something that's gonna be like, because you said this thing, I don't want to book you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like as long as they express interest in your initial email, I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like there's not.
I overthink it.
I
I
know,
overthink it
I
so
kn-
hard.
Well, but I also know that you've had the experience where you did reply and then you just got no response.
Yeah.
So that probably didn't help.
Yeah, but I also didn't follow up either.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And unfortunately, I was just talking to Kayla about this. This is the same thing in a lot of ways as applying for a job.
Yeah.
You have to say the initial.
Fucking hold on. No.
Your initial email is essentially you're sending out your resume. You're basically saying, "Here's what I'm about. Here's what the band is. I've got links to stuff. I've got samples. I got videos if you need them. This is what I got. What's your answer?"
You know,
I got a response back. They needed live videos. I threw some up on YouTube. I responded. I haven't heard anything back. We'll see what happens.
the perfect, and that's really interesting that you put it that way. Like, it is really like
It's a job.
it's a job.
She-
It's like
yeah,
trying
she,
to interview.
She nailed it. She nailed it on the head. It's exactly like another job.
Yeah.
You have to invest time in sending out your little applications, And it's funny because some of the venues do have like a rudimentary type of application. Tell us where you've played in the past couple of months. What's your draw?
What's
You
your
know what I mean?
shoe size?
What right? How many?
What's your astrological sign?
What's your astrological sign? What's your favorite drink? How many fingers am I holding up? and then eventually, hopefully, you get a response. But there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee, just like with jobs. There are no guarantees, unfortunately.
Now you're in a big and I hate to make this all corporate and shit,
Do
but
it.
it's like the difference between me cold emailing
Yeah.
my job
Yep.
versus being in my job and
Yeah.
interviewing for positions is very different.
Yeah.
I have all this experience now. I have all these people that can vouch for me.
Mhm.
It's so much easier to do interviews now because it's just like, hey,
Yeah.
you know who I am.
Yeah.
You know how I work. My boss is so and so. Like, they vouch for me, and then they're like, yeah, well, we love to have you on our team.
Yeah. And to some degree, it still functions that way in the music world.
Yeah,
because
100%.
if you've got X amount of followers, you're likely to get a response.
Bro, you know the person that works
There
there.
you go.
It's, oh, yeah.
You've already, we know him. He can book whenever he wants, practically.
Exactly.
He'll put together the show for us.
Yeah.
So yes, once you have your foot in the door, hopefully it kind of helps things. And I mean, we kind of saw it already. Like the first show we played at Carousel Lounge, the owner was like, "Here's my personal phone number. We'll have you back whenever you want." And that was great. That's great. It is. It's great. The problem is, and this is maybe my thing, I want to spread it around a little bit first.
But you want to, at any point,
Yes.
go back?
Yes.
It's always there.
It's on the table.
So
it's on the table.
I think we should do it.
Yeah. Yeah, she flat out said, don't go through the booking form anymore. You've played. You're great.
And then. See, my thing is, I just need to put this thing, after the fact. This is the second time this happened.
It's okay.
I'm still learning.
That's fine. That's fine. Any time or place.
Oh, bro.
But yeah, so considering that I've got contact info now, that's definitely a step in the door. Bless you, number 2. Number 3. And so, hopefully this leads to other stuff, but the main thing is we're just trying to enjoy it right now.
Yeah, definitely.
This is hopefully just the beginning, but if it's gonna come with some disappointment, but
And it's only if you make it
yes,
disappointing.
I was just gonna say that.
Boom.
It's disappointment if we choose to reflect that. Yeah, exactly. Give him a big hand. It's only disappointment if you just kind of let it sink in and
Yeah.
sit and kind of poison your mentality a
perspective,
little.
yeah.
Yeah. Or you could be like, well, that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, because again, we are in a very saturated market.
Mhm.
Everybody is vying for the same
On to the
opportunities.
On to the next
Yeah.
one, my boy.
down to the next one.
Down and I'm down. I wanted to actually get like on the soundboard. I want to get the best.
Yeah.
The best.
Is someone getting the best? The best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, dude, this was a good one, man. You know, dude, I always think like I would love to do the podcast like bi-weekly, but I know we're keeping it monthly.
We're
and-
keeping it monthly, and I think it's because there's something. First of all, it's kind of odd. I feel like it's been landing on the same day each time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of again serendipitous. I kind of want to keep that going.
Mhm.
But who knows? Like maybe if things pick up, it will be. But
Yeah.
I just think the month gives us so much more to sort of
Experience.
draw
life.
from experience. You know, I mean,
Fill the well.
I mean, look at fill your cup exactly. Think about how like the stuff about the shows just happened this week. You
dude,
know?
this should happen today.
Yeah. So if we had done it bi-weekly, obviously we could have still talked about this. I'm sure we would have ended up at an
And
episode.
we would have just been totally contradicting ourselves. The
It'd
following
be
week.
possibly.
No.
No.
Booking is good.
It can be, and we'll see. I mean, everybody that listens, if anybody is out there, you can follow us on our journey.
Mhm.
But I do definitely appreciate this time that we take,
Yeah.
each month to talk about what's going on. But yeah, just everybody out there, keep your heads on straight and just keep on, finding your own peace.
Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'll see you next time, dude.